Hello, welcome to another Burgundy with Tweedy video. This is going to have to be quick. I have some pasta boiling in the kitchen, 6 minutes remaining, so I can't faff about here. This is a Gevrey Chambertin from Sylvie Esmonin, and it's a 2022 vintage. That might sound a bit too young. It is only June 2025, so it's had slightly less than 3 years, but as I've been saying in some recent videos, I have had a run of surprisingly drinkable, I think, 2022 Burgundy vintages, Burgundy wines from that vintage from Burgundy, suggesting to me, as I've said before, this is all getting very repetitive, isn't it, that I think it is what is called a forward vintage, a vintage that becomes ready a little bit earlier than you might expect. Let's hope this is another example thereof. What can we say about the colour there? Somewhere in the middle. There is a nice translucency to that, which I'm partly just appreciating because I'm at home, therefore using proper stemware. Has that nice sort of dark red burgundy sort of colour. Initial nose is one that I'm familiar with and have never really been able to characterise particularly well. It's fruity, but I can't quite figure out what that fruit is. And this often then, with a bit of swirling, turns into berry fruit. Never quite sure what that initial nose is. It is something fruity, but a little bit of aeration, getting berry fruit. Possibly we're talking a bit of blackberry, at least here. Maybe red and black berry fruits mixed. Bit of blackberry, possibly a bit of blackcurrant. Maybe a bit of raspberry. I don't think we're quite veering into strawberries here, but who knows. Red and blackberries. 3.5 minutes remaining. I should take a sip. Get on with it. First thing that springs to mind there when tasting that, quite a lot of acidity. I'm not saying it's vinegary and undrinkably sharp, but definitely a very healthy dose of acidity there. I suppose hand in hand with that is fresh, juicy, more of that red, dark berry fruit character. I think possibly hints of something slightly licoricey emerging now. Quite often when I say that, it seems to go hand in hand with tobacco-y notes, but here that's more purely just licorice, which is all right. Yeah, I think juicy overall. Red, black, berry, fruit, juice. Possibly this is a sign that this is a little bit on the young side, I think. It is certainly quite drinkable like this. There are no unpleasant edges, but maybe that's a little bit less sophisticated and complex than perhaps this winemaker would have liked it to be. I assume the recommended drinking window possibly starts now, or if not, next year. Yeah, I think that's maybe a little bit on the young side. It's nice, pleasant sort of fruit character, good acidity, which suggests it will age well, presumably. And all quite smooth, quite, wouldn't quite go so far as to say silky, but certainly a nice smooth mouthfeel. Not hugely vinous yet. Not hugely winey in a way, more juicy. Possibly this will become slightly more interesting with a bit more aeration, but the initial assessment of that is maybe a little bit on the young side still, but might become very interesting with a bit more age, perhaps. 40 seconds left. I'd better get back into the kitchen then. Cheers. I felt this deserved an update after a couple of glasses of this. I think as a combination of a bit more aeration, and I actually popped it in the fridge for a bit. Originally, I'd picked this straight out of the cellar, so it can't have been particularly warm, but my cellar isn't the best, isn't the coolest of cellars. This has actually become quite elegant now, and thus the compulsion I felt to update the earlier tasting notes. I think what I was saying in summary was nice fruit character, but a little bit simplistic and not particularly vinous, not particularly winey. And it's gone from that to being quite sophisticated, quite elegant. And I think I withdraw my initial comment that this was not ready. I think this is borderline ready now, but it does just need to be in the right condition. The bottle needs to be, right temperature, right sort of level of aeration. Maybe decanting would help with this, but I think broadly speaking the fruit character is still along the lines that I was saying before. It's red, black berry fruits, probably more blackberry. If I had to pick a single fruit, more blackberry than anything else. But on the palate, Now with a bit of aeration, a bit of chilling, really nice weight to it, a slight salinity actually that I didn't notice before, a slight saltiness. It's taken some of the juicy edges off it and allowed some of the other characteristics to shine through, I suppose. It has a smoother mouthfeel now. I'm still not quite sure that silky is the word that comes to mind. Sometimes I end up saying pebbly. This is not the first time for that sort of smoothness of the mouthfeel, but when the wine is a little bit harder in a way, it's very, these nuances are quite difficult to describe. Silky doesn't feel like quite the right word, but it does have a very appealing smoothness to it, and a bit more of a savoury palate, a bit more salinity, minerality. I'm getting notes on the nose of things like tea, I think. I don't think we're quite going spice, but maybe perhaps dried herbs, something like that. Yeah, definitely overall actually pretty good. And I do think this is ready now, just needs a little bit of care around serving, I think, particularly on a hot day like today. I think Burgundy often suffers, to me at least, if it's too warm. I find it at room temperature on a warm day like today often can be a bit of a disappointment, so it is quite important to keep it down, I think, closer to cellar temperature, closer to, I don't know, should we call it 15 degrees? Is that uncontroversial, Celsius? But when it gets up to 20 degrees, I think it can suffer a bit. Obviously it shouldn't be fridge temperature, but cellar temperature. I'm enjoying that now. I'll stop babbling. Cheers.